I woke before my alarm, the way I often did after a late shift in the air. Chicago winters had a way of seeping into your bones, and that morning the air in my apartment felt thin and cold, like the world was holding its breath. Outside, the sky was still dark, but a faint gray line pressed against the horizon, promising daylight that didn't quite feel welcome yet. I sat on the edge of my bed with my feet on the hardwood floor, rubbing sleep from my eyes. My studio apartment was small, but mine. One room, one window, one radiator that clicked like a patient tapping their fingers on a waiting room chair. A single plant by the windowsill leaned toward whatever light it could find. It had survived better than most things in my life. I told myself it would be a normal day. A quiet morning before my shift, coffee, a shower, maybe time to breathe before walking back into the controlled chaos of trauma bays and fluorescent lights. Normal was comforting, predictable. I padded into the kitchenette and filled the kettle. The metal groaned as the flame caught. I wrapped my hands around a mug even before the water boiled, craving warmth. My reflection in the microwave door looked tired, but not broken. Not yet. I reached for my phone to check the time, and froze. No notifications from the family group chat. That should not have mattered. But it did. Every December, without fail, my phone exploded with messages from my mother. Reminders about the Christmas service at church. Questions about whether I could sing in the choir again. Requests for donations toward the holiday outreach program. Photos of red and gold decorations filling every corner of our childhood home in Oak Park, even if I was working, even if I didn't reply. The messages always came, but this morning, my lock screen was bare, empty, silent. I unlocked the phone, opened the group chat labeled Faith and Family. The last message sat there from 3 days ago. My brother sending a thumbs up to something I never responded to. No new messages. No new plans. No reminder about the service. I refreshed the chat. Nothing. A tiny ache pricked the base of my throat. Not panic yet. Just unease. Maybe they started a new group. Maybe mom forgot to add me. Maybe my phone glitched. I told myself all of that while pouring boiling water over instant coffee granules, watching them dissolve like small dark storms. I opened my insurance app. Not for any reason connected to family, just habit. I like to stay on top of my bills. Nursing taught you quickly that medical debt destroyed more lives than illness ever could. The dashboard loaded. Slowly, then a number appeared at the top of the screen that didn't make sense. Pending claim, $46,870. My fingers tightened around the mug. The claim was dated 2 days ago. It listed a private outpatient surgical clinic on the south side of Chicago. I had never been there. I clicked the details, procedure codes, anesthesia, recovery room, medication charges, everything neatly itemized, everything billed under my name. My heartbeat picked up, not racing, but suddenly present, loud, like the beeping monitors in a patient room after someone's heart rate spikes. I scrolled further, another claim from the same clinic. 3 months earlier, another 6 months before that, then one from a rehab center I had never heard of. I set the mug down carefully. The coffee sloshed over the rim, leaving a dark ring on the counter. I swallowed, dry, too aware of the sound. I thought about my mother, her church outreach, her stories about helping families get treatment, the way she always spoke about miracles and healing, the way people in the congregation hugged her after service, thanking her for being such a blessing. At the time, I thought it was kindness. I opened the detailed billing history. There it was, my insurance ID, my full name, my date of birth, used again and again. My chest tightened. Not fear, not yet, recognition. I reached for my phone to call her, to ask, to give space for an explanation. Before I could dial, the phone vibrated in my hand, a voicemail notification. Timestamp, 11:48 p.m. last night. My mother's name. I stood still. The apartment suddenly to quiet to small. I pressed play. Her voice came through warm, controlled, familiar in the way a hymn was familiar, even when you didn't believe in it anymore. Naomi, I'm calling to let you know that the family has decided it's best if you don't attend the Christmas service this year. There's been concern about your attitude lately. We want the holiday to remain peaceful and focused on ministry. I hope you understand. We'll talk later. The line clicked dead. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe for a full second. The radiator clicked. The kettle hissed as if it hadn't finished its job. A car passed outside on the wet street, life continuing, while something inside me shifted in silence. I replayed the voicemail, then again. No hesitation, no apology, no explanation, just a verdict delivered like scripture. I set the phone down on the counter beside the spilled coffee. The insurance claims still glowed on the screen. A family that didn't want me at their holiday. Medical procedures billed in my name that I never had. Two truths colliding in one quiet Chicago morning. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling the chill that had nothing to do with winter. And that was the moment the kettle screamed, sharp and sudden, reminding me that water boils whether or not your life is falling apart. I did not go back to bed. Sleep was impossible now. Not because I was panicked, but because my mind had locked onto a single question and refused to release it. How long? How long had my name been moving through systems I never touched? How long had my identity been walking into clinics, signing forms, lying on operating tables, being sedated, billed, discharged, all without me? I poured the boiled water out of the kettle and refilled it just to hear something familiar, something normal. My hands needed movement. The radiator clicked. The fridge hummed. The city outside woke up one car at a time. I sat at my tiny kitchen table and opened my laptop. The insurance portal looked different on a bigger screen. Less like an app, more like an official record, a ledger, a story. I logged in again, half expecting the claims to vanish like a glitch. They didn't. I clicked the oldest claim first. 2 years ago, a clinic in Naperville, procedure, outpatient orthopedic surgery, follow-up physical therapy, prescription coverage. I had been working a double shift that day. I remembered because it had been one of those rare days. The year overflowed and we had to turn storage rooms into makeshift patient bays. I checked the time stamp on the claim, 11:04 a.m. I had been pushing a gurney down a hallway at 11:04 a.m., not lying in a surgical suite. I opened the next claim. 10 months later, same clinic, different procedure. Then 3 months after that, then last week, a pattern, a rhythm, a quiet siphoning. My throat tightened as I scrolled, not from shock anymore, from recognition, the kind that comes when a puzzle finally forms an image you didn't want to see. I opened my email and typed the clinic's name into the search bar. 6 messages appeared immediately. Appointment confirmations, follow-up surveys, payment summaries, all addressed to me, none ever opened. My inbox had been swallowing them for years like a locked drawer. Collecting knives. I clicked one open. Dear Naomi Carter, thank you for trusting us with your care. I felt my stomach turn. I had never been there, never spoken to them, never given consent, never signed a single intake form. I sat back in my chair and rubbed the bridge of my nose. The muscles in my jaw ached from clenching. Without realizing it, I thought of my mother's stories at church. The way she stood at the pulpit during testimony nights, talking about guiding sick members to proper treatment. How the congregation praised her for walking people through healing journeys. How they said God had gifted her with compassion. At the time, I believed it. Now I wondered how many of those journeys had walked straight through my identity. I opened my bank app, not the savings account, not my main checking, the secondary account I used only for auto payments. It loaded. A single upcoming transaction sat at the top, auto draft, $1,120. Medical loan services scheduled in 3 days. I stared at it. I had never taken a medical loan. I tapped the details. Loan origin, Faith Community Credit Union. Co-signer, Naomi Carter. Borrower, Evelyn Carter. Purpose, Medical Treatment Assistance Program. My fingers trembled slightly as I scrolled. Monthly drafts for the past 18 months. Every one marked completed. Every one paid from my account. Not enormous amounts. Not enough to trigger alarm. Just steady, quiet, persistent, like a slow leak in a pipe hidden behind walls. I thought back to the times my mother called, voice gentle, saying the ministry was growing, that she was helping families who couldn't afford care, that small monthly donations were needed to keep the program alive. I remembered saying yes without thinking. Yes, because she was my mother. Yes, because I made enough. Yes, because helping felt easier than questioning. Only now I realized I had never once been shown real paperwork, never once been told specific totals, never once been asked if I wanted to be listed as a borrower. My name had been written into places I had never walked into. I opened the transaction history and scrolled back, 18 months of payments. Before that, smaller ones, different loan services, different clinic names, always the same pattern. I closed my eyes. Images floated through my mind. My mother standing in the kitchen of our old Oak Park house, stirring soup for someone recovering from surgery, her proud smile when church elders praised her dedication, her insistence that I stay late after service to help stack chairs because ministry requires sacrifice, all of it reframed in a new light, not generosity. Operation. I opened a blank document and started typing. Dates, amounts, clinic names, loan numbers, claim IDs. I did not let myself think about betrayal. Not yet. I stayed in nurse mode, charting mode, collect the facts, document the evidence. No emotion until assessment is complete. The list grew longer than I wanted. When I finished the first pass, I looked at the bottom of the page and realized my coffee had gone completely cold again. I took a sip. Anyway, bitter, burnt, familiar. My phone buzzed once on the table. A text from my brother Marcus. Mom said you're upset. Don't overreact. It's just church stuff, just church stuff. I didn't reply. I didn't have the energy to argue with someone who had never questioned anything as long as he wasn't the one paying for it. I set the phone aside and stood up, pacing once through my apartment, one lap from bed to window, to counter to door, like I was checking the perimeter of a room in a hospital before admitting a patient. My reflection in the microwave door looked sharper now, eyes more awake, jaw set. I whispered the words out loud, just to hear them. This is identity fraud. The word fraud felt heavy, serious, something that belonged in courtrooms and headlines. Not in the same sentence as my mother's name, but the facts didn't care about comfort. I sat down again and opened my insurance provider's fraud reporting page. I read it slowly, carefully, absorbing each sentence. If you believe your identity has been used without consent, contact us immediately. I hovered over the call button, then stopped. Not yet. I needed one more piece of information before I let systems larger than family step in. I wanted to know how deep this went. I opened the Faith Community Credit Union website and logged into the loan portal, using the account number shown in the draft. Details, password reset required. Of course, I entered my email. A reset link arrived. Instantly, I clicked it, set a new password, logged in. The dashboard opened. 3 active loans, all under my name, all listing my mother as program administrator. Total outstanding balance 38 for 00. Payment history perfect. Of course it was. I had been paying it without knowing. I stared at the screen for a long time, not crying, not shaking, just still. A nurse learns early that the most dangerous moment in an emergency is the moment right before you act. When all the information locks into place and you realize the patient isn't going to make it without intervention. This felt like that moment. The diagnosis was clear. The cause was clear. The next step would change everything. My phone buzzed again. A new notification slid onto the screen. Auto pay confirmation reminder. Medical loan draft $1,120 scheduled in 3 days. I held the phone in my hand, staring at the notification. A small, quiet thought formed. I didn't have to let it happen. Not anymore. I didn't call first. If I called, my mother would prepare. She would soften her voice, choose her words, arrange her face into that practiced expression of gentle concern. She would control the space before I even stepped into it. So I drove. The streets of Chicago were damp from overnight rain, reflecting gray sky and red brake lights in thin, trembling lines. I turned off the radio. I didn't want noise. I needed to hear my own thoughts. Oak Park was only 30 minutes away, but it felt like crossing a border I had avoided for years. Every block closer tightened something in my chest. Not fear, memory. The church steeple came into view before the house did. White paint, tall windows, a place where people bowed their heads and trusted my mother's words. I passed it without slowing. The house stood at the end of the street, as familiar as my own handwriting. 2-story brick, blue shutters, a wooden sign near the porch that read "Blessed Home." I parked at the curb and sat there for a moment, engine idling, hands resting lightly on the steering wheel. I reminded myself of the facts, my name on insurance claims, my name on medical loans, my money-paying debts I never agreed to, not suspicion, not imagination, documented truth. I turned off the car and stepped into the cold. The porch boards creaked under my weight. They always had. My mother used to joke that the house sighed when people arrived. Back then, I thought it was charming. I knocked. Footsteps inside. The door opened. My mother stood there in a soft gray sweater, her hair pulled back, a thin gold cross hanging at her throat. She looked surprised, but only for half a second. Then the practiced smile slid into place. Naomi, honey, you didn't say you were coming. I stepped past her without waiting for permission. The living room smelled like cinnamon and furniture polish. A nativity scene sat on the coffee table. Christmas decorations, already up, weeks before December had properly started. She had always been early with holidays, as if celebration could cover cracks underneath. She closed the door behind me. My brother Marcus sat on the couch in sweatpants, scrolling his phone. He barely looked up. Hey, he said flat. I didn't answer. My mother moved toward the kitchen, hands clasped in front of her. Do you want tea? Coffee? You look tired. I want to talk, I said. She paused, then nodded. Of course. Let's sit. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where I had done homework as a child. The same table where she had once held my hands and prayed over my college acceptance letter. Marcus stayed in the doorway, leaning against the frame, arms crossed. He was here to witness, or to intimidate, or both. I placed my phone on the table and unlocked it. The insurance claims page was still open. I need you to tell me why my name is on medical claims for procedures I never had, I said. Her eyes flicked to the screen. Just once, but I saw it. Recognition, not confusion, not surprise. She folded her hands tighter. Naomi, you're misunderstanding things. I tapped the screen. This clinic, these procedures, these loans, they are under my identity. She sighed softly, like a pastor faced with a troubled congregant. You know I help people. The church helps people. Sometimes systems require a responsible party to make sure care is accessible. I stared at her. You used my identity, I said. Without telling me. Marcus shifted his weight. You make good money, he muttered. What's the big deal? I turned to him. Would it be a big deal if it was your name? He looked away. My mother reached out, placing her hand over mine. I didn't pull away, but I didn't hold it either. Sweetheart, she said. These families needed help. Insurance systems are cruel. Paperwork is impossible. I didn't want to burden you with details. You didn't want to ask, I said. So you decided for me. She closed her eyes briefly, as if in prayer. Everything I do is for ministry. There are loans in my name, I said. Real debt, real legal responsibility. Did you plan to tell me if something went wrong? If someone sued? If the bank came after me? Her voice softened further. Syrup over steel. God provides a way. You've been blessed. Sharing blessings is part of faith, Marcus scoffed. You're acting like she stole from you. My mother didn't correct him. Silence settled over the kitchen. The fridge hummed. A wall clock ticked. I could hear my own breathing. I thought about the voicemail. Her voice telling me not to attend Christmas service. The quiet way she had exiled me from the very community she built on my back. I opened another screen on my phone. The medical loan portal. The pending auto draft. 3 days from now, I said, turning the phone so she could see. Another payment comes out of my account. Her eyes widened slightly. Marcus straightened. Wait, that's the outreach loan. Not anymore, I said. My mother's expression shifted. Not panic. Calculation. You can't stop that, she said gently. People are depending on that program. People are depending on money taken under my identity without my consent, I replied. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. If you shut that down, families will suffer. The church will suffer. The ministry will suffer. And people will ask questions. There it was. Not apology. Not regret. Threat. Wrapped in scripture and concern. Marcus stepped closer. Mom's right. You don't understand how much good this does. I understand exactly what it does, I said. It makes you look holy. It makes you look generous. It makes you look powerful. And it puts all the risk on me. My mother's hand tightened around her mug. Naomi, this family raised you, loved you, supported you. Now you want to tear down what we've built. I felt something inside me settle. A boundary forming with the quiet certainty of a door closing. You didn't raise me with fraud, I said. You raised me to tell the truth. Marcus shook his head. You're being dramatic. I stood. They both looked up at me now. I'm not paying another cent, I said. Not for the loans. Not for the claims. Not for anything attached to my name that I didn't agree to. My mother's voice cooled. If you do this, you will embarrass this family. You will embarrass the church. You will embarrass God's work. I looked at her. Really looked. At the woman who once braided my hair. Who taught me prayers. Who told me kindness mattered. Then I looked at the loan screen again. God doesn't need stolen identities, I said. I walked to the front door. Marcus muttered something under his breath. My mother followed me, her footsteps quick and quiet. Naomi, she said, standing behind me as I put on my coat. Think about what you're choosing. I turned back once. I am. Then I left. The cold air outside hit my face. I breathed in deeply. My hands were steady on the car door. I sat behind the wheel and opened my banking app. The medical loan autopay sat there. Waiting. Scheduled. Predictable. Automatic. I tapped it. Settings. Cancel auto payment. A confirmation screen appeared. Are you sure you want to stop this scheduled payment? I stared at the words. Then I pressed confirm. The screen refreshed. Auto payment canceled. No fanfare. No explosion. Just a simple system acknowledgement. But inside me, something ancient and heavy finally cracked open. I sat there in the driveway of the house that raised me, staring at my phone, knowing that everything would change. Next, I expected panic. I expected a flood of angry calls, threats, pleas, something loud enough to match the size of what I had just set in motion. But the first thing that came was silence. Not peaceful silence. Not healing silence. The kind that waits. The kind that gathers breath before speaking. I drove back to my apartment with the heater blasting, hands steady on the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the wet ribbon of road ahead. My phone lay face up in the cup holder. No notifications. No vibration. No missed calls. As if nothing had happened. By the time I reached Chicago, daylight had thinned into a dull winter afternoon. I climbed the stairs to my apartment, unlocked the door, and stepped into the familiar single room that smelled faintly of detergent and coffee. I set my keys down, hung my coat, took off my shoes. Normal movements. Normal actions. I needed them to remind my body that I still belonged to myself. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account again. The auto payment for the medical loan now read. Status. Canceled. No error messages. No warnings. Just a clean line of text. I sat back and let out a slow breath. Then I heard the first buzz. My phone lit up. A text from Marcus. You just destroyed Mom's program. Dad is furious. I stared at the screen. Dad? He was not supposed to be part of this story. Not yet. My mother and my church. My brother and his loyalty. That was the circle I expected. But if Dad was involved now, that meant only one thing. The image mattered. More than the truth. I didn't reply. A second message came. You don't understand what you've done. Then a third. You better fix this before Sunday. Sunday. Church. Service. The platform where my mother's voice carried, farther than mine ever had. I set the phone aside and went to the kitchen. I poured water into the kettle, turned on the stove, waited for the familiar rattle. When the water boiled, I poured it over tea leaves and watched the liquid darken. Grounding. Routine. Simple. I carried the mug to the window and looked out at the street below. People walked by in scarves and coats. A bus stopped. A dog tugged on a leash. Life that didn't know my name kept moving. My phone buzzed again. Not Marcus this time. A notification from Facebook. I rarely used it. Mostly to stay loosely connected to extended family and old classmates. The alert read. Evelyn Carter shared a new post. My thumb hovered over the notification for a moment before tapping it. The post loaded. A photo of the church sanctuary. Golden lights. Red ribbons. Evergreen garlands draped across pews. In the center, my mother stood smiling beside Pastor Reynolds, both of them holding a large banner that read, Healing Hands Holiday Ministry Serving the Sick in Our Community. Caption underneath was long. She wrote about sacrifice, about faith, about the joy of helping families access care they could never afford. She thanked God for the resources provided through generous blessings, and said she was humbled to serve. Then came the line that made my breath stop. We have been given the ability to carry burdens for those who cannot. This ministry exists because of love, family, and obedience to God's call. Comments poured in beneath it. You are an inspiration. God's work through you is beautiful. So proud to be part of this church. Your family is such a blessing. I scrolled further. A second post from the church's official page. Same photo. Different caption. Spotlight story coming soon. The Carter family's healing. Utrechi stared at the screen. My name was nowhere. Not in the post. Not in the comments. Not in the story they were already telling the world. Yet my identity sat quietly in insurance databases. My signature sat on loan forms I had never seen. My bank account quietly fed this entire operation. The mug in my hand cooled faster than I drank it. I clicked the church page and scrolled down. There it was, a small announcement post from earlier that morning. Join us this Sunday as we celebrate the Carter family's healing ministry and honor Evelyn Carter for her tireless work bringing medical aid to those in need. Special recognition service and community feature coming next week. Community feature. I knew exactly what that meant. A local religious newsletter. Maybe even a neighborhood paper. A story. A public record. One version of events. Their version. I sat on the couch and opened the photo again, studying my mother's smile. The slight tilt of her head. The soft eyes. The gold cross at her neck catching the light. She looked like kindness itself, and I knew exactly what it had cost. I opened my evidence document on the laptop. The list of claims, loans, payments, dates, numbers, to stories. One public, one private, one praised, one hidden. The gap between them felt like a chasm opening under my feet. My phone buzzed again. Another Facebook notification, a message request from someone I didn't know. Hello, I'm a writer with the Chicago Faith and Community Journal. We're preparing a feature on local outreach ministries and have been referred to the Carter family's Healing Hands program. I've received some documents regarding financial records connected to this ministry and wanted to verify accuracy before publication. Would you be available to answer a few questions? I read it once, then again. My heart beat once, slow and heavy, not fear, not excitement, recognition. The story was already moving beyond the walls of my family's kitchen, beyond church pews and prayer circles, into the public record. I set the phone down carefully on the cushion beside me. The room was quiet. The radiator clicked. The fridge hummed. The wind pushed rain against the window. I looked at the message again. They already had documents. That meant someone else had noticed. Someone else had seen cracks in the story. All they needed now was confirmation, truth or silence. I sat there for a long time, hands folded in my lap, thinking of my mother's voice on the voicemail, telling me not to come to church, telling me the decision had been made. She had removed me from the room, but she hadn't removed me from the record. And now the record was knocking. I reached for the phone, not typing yet, just holding it, feeling the weight of what came next settle fully into my chest. I didn't reply to the journalist right away, not because I didn't want to, but because I needed one moment where the decision was fully mine, not pushed by anger, not pulled by guilt. I made dinner, something simple, rice and vegetables. I ate slowly at the counter, listening to the radiator breathe beside me. I washed the single plate and set it on the drying rack. Ordinary tasks, human tasks, proof that I still lived a real life outside of claims and loans and church praise posts. When I finally picked up my phone again, there was a new voicemail waiting. Not from my mother, not from Marcus, unknown number. I played it. A calm, professional voice filled the room. Hello, Naomi Carter. This is Denise Harper from Northside Medical Compliance. We received an inquiry regarding insurance claims associated with your policy. We'd like to schedule a brief conversation to verify some information. Please call us back at your earliest convenience. I listened twice. Medical compliance, not billing, not customer service. Compliance meant rules, regulation, investigation. My mother's ministry had always lived in soft spaces, prayer circles, donation baskets, verbal testimonies, goodwill. Compliance lived in hard spaces, documentation, accountability, consequences. I sat down on the couch with the phone in my hand. The journalist had said they had documents. Now, hospital compliance department was calling. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about identity, consent, legality. I returned the call. After 2 rings, the same voice answered. Polite, controlled, professional. Miss Carter. Thank you for calling back. I just need to verify that I'm speaking with Naomi Carter. Date of birth I confirmed, she continued. We've received multiple claims processed under your insurance for procedures at facilities you're not currently affiliated with as a patient. Our system flagged this as potential identity misuse. I need to ask you directly, did you personally receive any of these treatments? She listed 3 clinics, 5 dates, 7 procedure codes. I answered each one. No, silence on the other end for a moment. Then she said, thank you. I'm going to open a formal review. This is standard procedure. I'll send you an email requesting supporting documentation if you have any. This protects you as well. Protects me. No one in my family had used that phrase. They talked about protecting the ministry, protecting the family image, protecting the church's reputation. This stranger on the phone was the first person to say something that centered me. After we ended the call, I stared at the wall for a long time. Then I opened my laptop. The evidence folder waited. I added new subfolders, insurance claims, loan agreements, bank drafts, church posts, family messages. I dragged everything in, screenshots, PDFs, email trails. Dates lined up like hospital charts. When the compliance email arrived 15 minutes later, I attached the folder without hesitation. A quiet click. Sent. I didn't feel brave. I felt inevitable. As if this had been moving forward long before I was aware of it, and I was simply stepping into the current. My phone buzzed again. This time it was the journalist. I appreciate your patience. I want to confirm a few details. The documents we received indicate medical loans under your name connected to a church-run outreach. Can you confirm whether you consented to those loans? I stared at the blinking cursor in the reply box. Consent. Such a small word. Such a large truth. I typed. I did not consent. I was not informed. I did not authorize the use of my identity for any medical loans or insurance claims. I hit send. The moment felt smaller than I expected. No thunder. No collapse. No dramatic music. Just the quiet whir of my laptop fan. Outside, a siren passed in the distance. In my world, emergency meant something different now. A new email arrived minutes later. This one from the compliance officer again. Miss Carter. Thank you for your documentation. Based on preliminary review, it appears your identity was used without authorization. We will escalate this to our legal department and notify relevant parties. You may be contacted by an attorney representing your interests. I read the sentence 3 times. Used without authorization. Legal department attorney. Representing your interests. For the first time since this began, someone else had named it clearly. Not ministry. Not sacrifice. Not blessing. Unauthorized use. I closed the laptop halfway, leaving only a thin line of light spilling across the keyboard. Then my phone rang. Unknown number again. I hesitated before answering. This is Attorney Samuel Brooks, the voice said. I've been retained by Northside Medical Compliance to advise you regarding a case of identity misuse. Do you have a few minutes to speak? I sat very still. Yes, I said. He asked calm questions, direct questions, professional questions. Did I sign any loan agreements? Did I authorize anyone to use my insurance information? Did I receive any of the listed treatments? Did I give written consent to any outreach program using my name? I answered. No. No. He paused, then said, Miss Carter, based on what you've described in the documents provided, this meets the threshold for medical identity fraud. We will be proceeding accordingly. I will send you formal paperwork outlining next steps. Fraud, not misunderstanding, not ministry, not family helping family. Fraud. I ended the call and sat in silence, the word echoing in my mind. Fraud. I thought of my mother's hands on mine at the kitchen table, her soft voice, her scripture-laced explanations, her warning about embarrassment. She had never once denied what she did. She had only justified it. My phone buzzed again. A message from Marcus. You've gone too far. Mom is crying. The pastor is furious. Dad says you're dead to this family if you don't fix this. I didn't reply, because something larger than family had now entered the room, and it didn't care about tears, or church, or reputation. It cared about law. I leaned back on the couch and closed my eyes. For the first time, I wasn't carrying this alone. The article went live on a Thursday night. I didn't know at first. I was halfway through folding clean laundry when my phone began vibrating across the couch like something alive. One notification, then another, then 10. I set the towels down and picked up the phone. Facebook, text messages, unknown numbers, missed calls.at. The top of the screen said a link from the Journalist, Chicago Faith and Community Journal feature update. I tapped it. The page loaded slowly, as if giving me time to breathe. Then the headline appeared. Community Outreach Ministry faces scrutiny after financial records raise questions. Below it, a photo of my mother. The same smile, the same gold cross, the same church banner behind her. But the caption had changed.it. Spoke of unverified financial practices, of medical claims filed under another individual's identity, of ongoing compliance review. It did not name me. It did not accuse directly, but the implication sat in every line. I scrolled, quotes from church members expressing confusion, a brief statement from the clinic declining comment due to investigation, a mention that legal counsel had been contacted. I reached the bottom of the page and realized my hands were steady, not shaking, not trembling, steady. My phone buzzed again. Marcus, I opened the message. You destroyed Mom. The church board is meeting tonight. People are leaving. Pastor Reynolds is furious. He says the ministry might shut down. Are you happy now? I stared at the words, destroyed Mom. Not, Mom committed fraud. Not, Mom used your identity. Not, Mom lied. Destroyed Mom. I set the phone down. The apartment felt unusually quiet. Even the radiator had stopped clicking, as if listening. I walked to the window and looked down at the street. A bus exhaled passengers at the corner. A couple hurried through the cold, holding hands. A man walked his dog past the mailboxes. Normal lives. No idea what had just shifted in mine. Then the doorbell rang. I froze. No one came to my apartment unannounced. My friends always texted first. My coworkers knew my schedule. The doorbell rang again. I crossed the room slowly, each step deliberate, not fearful, prepared. I opened the door. My mother stood there. No smile this time. Her coat was thrown on hastily, hair pulled back, but loose strands escaped. Her eyes were red, but her posture remained straight, controlled, dignified. A practice collapse. She stepped inside without waiting for permission. I need to talk to you, she said. I closed the door behind her. She stood in my living room, looking around as if noticing for the first time how small my world had always been compared to hers. No nativity set, no banners, no congregation, just a couch, a lamp, a half-folded basket of laundry. She turned to me. You didn't have to do this, she said. I met her gaze. Yes, I said. I did. She drew in a breath, long and careful. Do you know what's happening right now? She asked. Do you understand the damage? The truth is happening, I said. The damage was already done. Her eyes flashed. I fed sick families, she said. I helped people get treatment. I kept children alive. And you reduced it to paperwork. I stepped closer, just enough that she had to look directly at me. You used my identity without consent, I said. You made me legally responsible for debt I didn't agree to. You risked my career, my credit, my future. And you never told me. Her voice lowered. I am your mother. I nodded once, and I am your daughter, not your resource. Her composure cracked then, just slightly, a flicker behind the eyes. They will shut everything down, she said. People will lose care. The church will suffer. Pastor Reynolds called me a liability. There it was, not guilt for what she had done to me. Fear of losing her position, her influence, her story. She stepped closer, reaching for my hands. I didn't pull away, but I didn't let her take them. Naomi, she said softly, we can fix this. You can tell them it was a misunderstanding. That you agreed. That you forgot signing the forms. They'll believe you. They'll believe the daughter. I stared at her. For a moment, I saw the woman who once tucked me into bed, who held my fevered forehead, who braided my hair before school. Then I saw the loan forms, the claims, the posts, the ministry built on a stolen name. I won't lie, I said. Her jaw tightened. If you don't, she said, this family will never forgive you. I felt a strange calm wash through me. Then this family never knew me, I replied. She exhaled sharply, as if struck. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she turned away, walking toward the door. At the threshold, she stopped. You were always too clinical, she said quietly. too cold. You never understood faith. I smiled. Once, small, unshakable, and you never understood consent. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The door clicked, shut behind her. I stood still for a long moment, listening to her footsteps fade down the stairwell. Then I walked back to the couch and sat down. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I opened the message. Miss Carter. This is Samuel Brooks again. We have initiated formal proceedings. You will receive court documentation within 48 hours. Please be prepared to provide testimony if requested. Court testimony, formal proceedings. The words sat on the screen like the next door in a long corridor. I leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. The house of prayers had collapsed, and now the law had stepped in where faith once ruled. After my mother left, the apartment felt larger, not physically, emotionally. As if a wall had been removed that I didn't realize was always pressing inward. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not the next morning either. Instead, I moved through the hours like someone recovering from surgery. Slow, intentional, careful not to tear invisible stitches. I called in sick to the hospital. My voice sounded calm when I told the charge nurse I wouldn't make it in. She didn't ask questions. Nurses recognize when another nurse needs quiet. I spent the morning organizing paperwork, not because I had to, because order kept me from spiraling. I printed the insurance claims, the loan agreements, the compliance emails, the journalist's article, screenshots of my mother's church posts. I placed everything in chronological order inside a plain white binder. No dramatic label, just a stack of truth, clean and undeniable. Around noon, my phone rang. Marcus. I stared at his name until the call stopped. Then a text followed. Dad wants to talk to you. You owe him an explanation. Dad. He hadn't spoken to me directly in years unless it was to remind me to show up to holiday services or donate toward a fundraiser. He had never once asked how my shifts were going, how my body felt after 12 hours on my feet, how I slept in a studio apartment that never fully warmed in winter. But now he wanted an explanation. I didn't reply. Another message came through seconds later. If you don't answer, he's coming to your place. A slow breath filled my chest. Let him. An hour later, the doorbell rang. Again, this time I didn't hesitate. I opened the door. My father stood there in a long dark coat, scarf wrapped tight around his neck, his hair damp from the cold drizzle outside. His jaw was set in the way it always was when he thought he was entering a room to reclaim authority. He stepped inside without greeting. Behind him, Marcus hovered on the landing. He didn't enter, just watched. Dad removed his coat and placed it carefully over the back of my chair, as if asserting ownership of the space through small gestures. He didn't sit. He stood in the middle of my living room, hands clasped behind his back, like a man addressing a congregation. Your mother tells me you've been uncooperative, he said. I looked at him, not the father, not the provider, just a man in a coat standing in my home. She used my identity without consent, I said. I reported it. He nodded once slowly. That was unwise. I almost laughed. Unwise, I repeated. Not illegal, not harmful. Unwise. He took a step closer. You don't understand how family works, he said. We solve problems internally. We don't involve outsiders. I gestured toward the binder on the table. You mean you hide them internally? His eyes flicked toward the binder, but he didn't touch it. You've humiliated your mother, he said. You've embarrassed this family in front of the church. People are questioning our integrity. I leaned back against the counter. People are questioning fraud, I replied. As they should. His expression hardened. You think you're better than us because you work in a hospital and understand systems. You think you can rewrite the rules of loyalty. I shook my head. I think loyalty doesn't mean surrendering my identity. He stared at me for a long moment, then exhaled through his nose. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You will contact the compliance department. You will tell them you misunderstood, that you gave permission, that you forgot. They will close the investigation. The church will recover, and we will never speak of this again. There it was, not a request. An order. I stepped forward once. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I will not lie. I will not retract. I will not protect a story built on my stolen name. His eyes narrowed. If you don't fix this, he said, you are no longer my daughter. The words hung between us, not shouted, not dramatic, delivered like a verdict. I felt the old instinct rise. The one that used to make me apologize even when I was right. The one that used to make me shrink to keep peace. It didn't arrive this time. Instead, a quiet thought settled in my mind. He only loved the version of me that paid and obeyed. I met his gaze. Then I was never your daughter, I said. Something shifted in his face. A crack, a flash of something uncertain behind the anger. But it vanished quickly, replaced by pride. Hard as stone, he picked up his coat. To the door, he turned once more. You will regret this, he said. Maybe, I replied. But I'll regret lying more. He left. Marcus avoided my eyes as he followed him down the stairs. The hallway swallowed their footsteps. I closed the door and locked it. Then I slid down to the floor and sat with my back against the wood, not shaking, not crying, just breathing. An hour passed. Then too, late afternoon light stretched across my living room floor. My phone buzzed. A new email from attorney Samuel Brooks. Subject, court filing notice. Carter Kasei opened it. The message was short, precise, official. Miss Carter, formal charges regarding medical identity fraud have been filed. You will receive a court summons within 24 hours as a primary witness. Please retain all documentation and remain available for follow-up. I read it twice. Formal charges, court, summons, primary witness. The story had crossed its final threshold. This was no longer a family argument, no longer a church scandal, no longer a private confrontation in a kitchen. This was a legal record, permanent. I placed the phone beside me on the floor and rested my head against the wall. A faint hum from the building's heating system vibrated through the concrete. I thought about the child I once was, holding her mother's hand in church pews, trusting that family meant safety. I thought about the adult I was now, sitting alone on a studio apartment floor, chosen out of a family for telling the truth, and I knew, with complete certainty, that I would not go back. The court summons arrived on a Tuesday, not by dramatic courier, not in a thick envelope, just another official letter in my mailbox, folded among grocery flyers and utility notices. I held it in my hand on the stairwell, the paper lighter than the weight it carried. My name printed neatly at the top, case number beneath it, date, time, location, Cook County Courthouse. I didn't open it right away. I didn't need to. I already knew what it said. By then, the story had finished unfolding outside of me. I was simply stepping through what had already been set in motion. I went inside, placed the summons in the binder with the rest of the documents, and made myself coffee. The kettle rattled. The radiator clicked. My plant leaned toward the pale winter light. Ordinary life continuing. Weeks passed, not in a blur. In steady increments, I returned to work. The hospital was its usual chaos, patients lining hallways, monitors beeping, residents running on caffeine and hope. No one there knew what was happening in my personal life, and I liked it that way. In trauma rooms, truth was simple: stabilize, treat, move forward. No illusions, no performance. Sometimes in the staff locker room, I'd catch my reflection in the metal door and realize I looked different. Not happier, not lighter, just unburdened. As if a weight I had carried so long I forgot it was there, had finally been set down. The legal process moved quietly in the background. Emails from the attorney, short phone calls confirming dates, questions answered, evidence shared. No dramatics, just procedure. I learned that the outreach loans had been taken under my name for years ago, that the insurance claims had been filed using photocopies of my old student ID, that multiple families had indeed received medical care but under identities that weren't theirs, funded by debt they would never be held accountable for, a noble goal executed through unlawful means, a ministry built on a stolen foundation. The church board issued a statement. Pastor Reynolds resigned for personal reasons. The Healing Hands Ministry page was quietly removed from the church website. No public apology. No acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Just absence where presence used to be. My mother never contacted me again. Not once. No late-night voicemail. No soft apology. No scripture-laced justification. Silence. I thought I would mourn that silence. Instead, I grew into it. One evening, as December settled fully over Chicago, I walked home from a late shift. Snow dusted the sidewalks. Storefronts glowed with holiday lights. People hurried past carrying wrapped boxes and evergreen wreaths. For the first time in years, I had no invitation to a family service. No obligation to perform joy in a pew. No role to play in someone else's story. I stopped at a small bakery near my building and bought a single cinnamon roll. The woman behind the counter wished me a happy holiday with genuine warmth, not expectation. Upstairs in my apartment, I set the roll on a plate, made tea, and turned on a small string of lights I'd bought on clearance years ago but never bothered to hang. They cast a soft golden glow against the wall, not grand, not showy, just enough. I sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, eating slowly, sipping tea, listening to the faint hum of the city outside my window. No prayers spoken for performance. No hymns sung for applause. No ministry needing my identity as scaffolding. Just me. Later that week, the attorney called to inform me the case had reached a plea agreement. My mother would face financial penalties and mandatory compliance restrictions. No jail, no public trial. The system, as always, sought efficiency over spectacle. He asked if I wanted to submit a victim impact statement. I thought about it for a long time, then I declined, not because she didn't harm me, but because my voice no longer needed to echo in rooms she occupied. My life had moved past her reach. The day before Christmas, I woke early again. The same gray winter light pressed against my window. The radiator clicked. The plant leaned toward the morning. I sat at the edge of my bed, hands wrapped around my knees, in a mirror of the morning that started everything. But this time, the silence was mine. I made coffee. I stood by the window. I watched the city wake. No notifications from family. No invitations. No verdicts passed on my worth. Just an empty screen and a full breath. Later, I called a coworker who lived alone too. We decided to meet for dinner after our shifts. Nothing fancy. Just food and laughter and shared understanding that family could be chosen. As I put on my coat, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. Tired eyes. Straight shoulders. A quiet steadiness. I didn't look like someone who had won. I looked like someone who had returned to herself. Before leaving, I turned off the string of lights. The room dimmed, calm, complete. The door. I paused once, looking back at the space that had held every stage of this transformation. Then I stepped outside, into cold air, into my own life, into a future no longer built on someone else's story.